Today we're going to talk a bit about whether we're slowly entering a bear market. Because you can see for yourself, all cryptos are really bleeding out. Here's a greed index at 15. It doesn't look good at all right now. And of course, one wonders more and more often, hey, isn't it maybe already slowly the start of a bear market? And for that, there's a perfect page from CoinGlass. Here we have 30 indicators that signal the bull run top. And we all know the indicator and the indicator that once predicted the bull run top. And you have to say, hey, not every indicator can be relied upon. But we have 30 of them here, and we can take a look. So far, not a single indicator has triggered, indicating that we have already seen the bull run top in this cycle. Here, for example, we can also see when to sell and when to hold. And we are 100% in the holding phase here. We have not yet received the signals that we are somehow heading towards a bull run top. For example, the first indicator, the Bitcoin R999 index. With that index, we would definitely need to rise above our levels. That hasn't happened yet. The P-cycle top indicator is now known by everyone. According to it, we definitely haven't seen a bull run top here yet. With the pure multiply index, we would also need to enter this red area. Concerning accumulation, that hasn't happened. In every cycle, it happened before. So far, that hasn't happened yet. In the Bitcoin rainbow chart, we are also not yet in the overheated area. Here it is. It's amazing how high we can actually still rise here. According to this rainbow chart, the rainbow chart has relatively well indicated the top in the past, although it must be said that it has become weaker over the years. Here, for example, is also an indicator that if we see ETF outflows over a longer period that are really large, it slowly signals the Bitcoin top. This indicator has also not yet hit. The 2-year EMA hasn't either. The MVR score hasn't triggered yet either. Also an indicator that has been correct every time in the past. Take a look at it. We really haven't seen a major spike here yet. I think I don't need to show you every indicator, but we have 30 indicators here. And out of these 30 indicators, not a single one has signaled our bull on top. And at this point, I think it's important to understand why, for example, Bitcoin isn't performing. And why we don't yet have a signal that we somehow have been close to the top. I would say it's due to the fact that we have major players like MicroStrategy, which accounted for 28% of all Bitcoin purchases last year. MicroStrategy took out huge loans and kept accumulating Bitcoin. That's why, for example, we saw such a strong rise in Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin couldn't keep up. So MicroStrategy was a huge player last year that pushed Bitcoin. Additionally, we had over $100 billion in Bitcoin ETFs. These two factors pushed our crypto market, but they were primarily focused on Bitcoin. Together, they accounted for over 50% of this entire Bitcoin increase. That's what I would say by now. And that's why we were able to rise last year. Because if we take a look at the money supply expansion in the USA, we see that money is continuously being withdrawn from the markets. Actually, that's not the case in a bull market. This means we had players here who pushed Bitcoin and the crypto market a bit, mainly, of course, Bitcoin. But that was only because they are so big and actually have money themselves. But actually, from a macroeconomic perspective, in terms of monetary policy, we were not yet in a bull run because we really didn't have this fresh new capital in the markets. We needed it in every cycle. New capital. Without it, it doesn't work. We did have new capital, yes, but this new capital mainly came through the ETFs and through MicroStrategy. Accordingly, we don't have any retailers here by far, and all the big companies haven't been able to invest as much here as they would have liked. Because we still have a strict monetary policy and it's difficult to obtain loans and new capital. That's why we had an upswing with Bitcoin, but it was by no means our cycle peak. We have so many indicators that have by far not yet been triggered. And if we simply look at Bitcoin addresses holding over 1,000 Bitcoins, the picture is quite clear. In the bull run here, where Bitcoin rose so much, we saw that the whales were directly selling Bitcoins. We saw that the addresses decreased. They really, incredibly, sold Bitcoin. Currently, that is not the case here. We don't really see the big whales selling here. No, in fact, they are even buying Bitcoin again at the moment. This strongly suggests that we have by far not yet seen the bull run top here, because the major players are still buying Bitcoin. What you also need to know is that indicators like the P-cycle top indicator have always been correct so far. And here it is important to understand that the longer we stay in such price ranges, the higher we would need to rise to reach the P-cycle top indicator. By now, we would need to rise above $150,000 for Bitcoin to even get close to the bull run top. And the more Bitcoin rises, the higher every price also rises. This means that, in the end, if we continue to stay at 80,000 per Bitcoin in the coming weeks, the purple line here will also continue to rise. And that in the future, we would need to see prices of 180,000 or so for Bitcoin to even break through this purple line. And after the breakthrough, it usually went significantly further. The longer this whole game drags on, the more positive it ultimately is for our Bitcoin price. And the more interesting it becomes with monetary policy, the more money we will get into our markets over the months. Currently, however, there are a few problems in the USA, for example. Trump's plan was for people to exit the S&P 500 and the stock markets and invest in bonds. And he wanted to lower bond yields with that. And we currently see that this plan is not working out, which is extremely devastating. And this is mainly because we simply see that major players like China, Japan, and so on are deliberately selling government bonds. As a result, the yield is rising again. Even though the USA wanted to lower the yield, their plan is currently not working, and now the Federal Reserve is at a very crucial point. And it really depends on what they do. And what they do will have huge consequences, whether on inflation or something else. Because either they bring new capital into the markets, which triggers inflation again, which could again indicate a recession, and so on, leading to stagnation. Or they lower the interest rates, but that could also cause fear in the markets again. And so on. So it's really damn interesting in the USA right now, and actually it looks a bit silly here because Trump's plan apparently isn't working out at the moment. In the end, everything still depends on the USA, on monetary policy. However, we know that in the future we will see an expansion of money again. The Fed has already announced this. This will then also take us to the next level. Whether we see a recession or not, in the end, it's not really that significant because a recession is already priced in. Besides, we also had a mini recession during the COVID crash, and overall, it's just a small correction. After that, we had another huge bull run. That's why everything remains very, very exciting. But in this video, I wanted to show you that we have by no means seen the bull run peak yet. Too many indicators haven't even triggered yet. This is the time when you either hold your cryptos or buy more, but do not sell. Because we will still see huge upswings here. But currently, it's not the time for that yet. I suspect that it will happen, as I've often mentioned. It will likely occur towards the end of the year. And at this point, I hope you enjoyed the video so far. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends. Bye.